It started the night the power went out. Samantha Reynolds wasn't afraid of the dark. Not anymore. She'd grown up in this house, a sprawling two-story colonial tucked into the far end of a quiet New Hampshire cul-de-sac. The creaks in the floor, the odd whistles through the old pipes, those were part of its charm. But that night, everything felt wrong. Her parents had gone to visit her aunt in Maine for the weekend, and she'd opted to stay home alone. At 17, Sam liked the idea of freedom. Popcorn for dinner, horror movies until 3 a.m., music loud enough to rattle the windows. Her parents had left that morning with reassurances. Keep the doors locked. Don't open up for anyone. It was around 9:47 p.m. when the lights flickered for the first time. She was curled up on the living room couch, watching an old horror classic, The Changeling, when the television cut to black and the ceiling lights dimmed, then went out completely. A second later, the hum of appliances died too. Total silence. Outside, a storm grumbled in the distance. No rain yet, but the clouds hung thick, casting the world in an eerie gray. Sam grabbed her phone. Still charged 93%. She flipped on the flashlight and glanced out the front window. The neighborhood looked like a shadow of itself.
No street lamps, no porch lights.
Just darkness pressing in from every direction. Just a blackout, she told herself. Nothing more. Still, she felt uneasy. She got up, locking the front door again just to be sure, then turned and nearly screamed when her reflection in the hallway mirror caught her off guard. "I'm losing it," she muttered, forcing a laugh. Her own voice sounded too loud in the stillness. The dog, Murphy, a golden retriever with a lazy gait, seemed to pick up on her nerves. He trotted over, tail wagging tentatively, and nuzzled her thigh. "You sense something too, huh?" she whispered, scratching behind his ear. She made her way upstairs to grab a few candles from the hall closet. Her parents always kept emergency supplies there. As she lit the first one, casting the hallway in flickering amber, a tapping sound came from downstairs. 3 knocks. Precise. Deliberate.
Sam froze.
It wasn't the door. It was the back window. She crept toward the staircase, gripping the candle in one hand like a weapon. Murphy stayed behind, whining softly. More knocks, then silence. She descended the stairs slowly, each step groaning under her weight. The living room was darker now. The candle's light only reached so far. She moved toward the kitchen, the source of the noise. That back window above the sink was wide, with no curtains. Her feet were silent on the cold tile. She peered around the corner. No one. She let out a breath. Then she noticed the condensation on the window. 5-finger streaks, fresh, as if someone had pressed their hand to the glass. She backed away, fast. A sudden loud bang from the front of the house made her scream. Murphy barked and bolted down the stairs. Someone was at the front door now. More knocking, frantic this time, like fists pounding against the wood. Then a voice. A man's voice, soft, almost too calm. "Let me in." She didn't move. She didn't speak. "Please."
I'm hurt.
"I need help." Sounded too smooth. No panic, no pain. Just words. Rehearsed. She grabbed her phone again and dialed 911. No signal. "No, no, no," she hissed, pacing away from the door. She remembered her dad saying storms could mess with reception sometimes. The knocking stopped, and then came a new sound, scratching. Slow, rhythmic, like nails across the door. Murphy barked again, louder this time. The scratching ceased. Then a thud. And another. Sam tiptoed toward the living room window and gently peeled back the curtain. No one. She moved to the other window, and nearly dropped the candle. There, standing motionless on the sidewalk in front of the house, was a tall figure. A man. Skinny, impossibly thin. He wore a tattered gray hoodie with the hood pulled up. His face, she couldn't see his eyes, but his skin was bone white, pale as porcelain, almost glowing in the dark. He didn't move, didn't look at her, just stood there. Then slowly his head turned. Their eyes met, or they would have if he had any. There were only two sunken black pits where his eyes should have been. Sam backed away from the window, her heart hammering. Murphy growled now, pacing like he wanted to attack, but couldn't figure out where to go. Suddenly, the man was gone. Vanished. She ran to the back door, checked it locked. Same with the side doors. She turned on every light that still worked. None of them responded. The blackout was still in full effect. That's when she heard it. Upstairs. Footsteps. Heavy. Slow. But definitely inside the house. Sam grabbed a knife from the kitchen and edged toward the stairs. Her breath came in shallow gasps. Murphy growled low and deep. Another step above. And another. Her bedroom was up there. So was her parents' room. And the attic. She ascended the stairs, candle in one hand, knife in the other, Murphy trailing close. Halfway up, a board creaked above. Then a loud crack, like something heavy falling.
Sam flinched.
She reached the top of the stairs and paused. The hallway was darker than before, even with the candle. Her parents' door was open. She never left it open. She moved toward it. The door creaked louder as she pushed it open fully. Nothing. Empty. She exhaled. Then something moved behind her. She turned, a flash of white. She screamed, stumbling back and nearly dropping the candle. But it was just the curtain fluttering. A window in her room was open. She hadn't opened it. She rushed to close it, and as she did, she saw him again. Standing on the lawn. Closer now. Right beneath her window. No expression. No eyes. Just standing. Then his mouth opened. Wide. Wider than a human mouth should go. And he began to smile. Samantha slammed the window shut and yanked the latch down with shaking hands. Her mind reeled. That man, thing, whatever it was, he wasn't just lurking anymore. He was watching. Playing. Like a predator savoring the chase. Murphy whined behind her, his tail tucked between his legs, body low. He wasn't barking now. He was scared, really scared. And Sam knew animals didn't fake fear. She backed away from the window, holding the candle out like it would somehow protect her. The wax had begun to drip, scalding hot, onto her fingers. She barely felt it. Outside, the pale man hadn't moved. His smile stretched ear to ear impossibly wide. His head tilted like he was studying her reaction. Then he took a step forward. She staggered back out of sight. Her thoughts raced. Call for help. She checked her phone again. No signal. The Wi-Fi was down too. The outage had knocked everything out.
No landline.
Her parents had canceled it the year before. She considered running out the front door, screaming for neighbors. But what if they were all asleep? What if he got to her first? The footsteps above her returned. Not just one or two. Now it was a steady rhythm. Pacing. But there's no third floor, she thought. Then she remembered. The attic. She hadn't been up there in over a year. It was a dusty, cramped crawl space filled with boxes of old books, broken Christmas lights, and childhood toys. There was no way up there except through the ceiling door in the hallway, right above her head. Her eyes flicked upward. The attic hatch was closed. The metal pull cord dangled silently. The footsteps stopped. She stood frozen. Then she heard a sound that didn't belong, breathing. Wet, ragged, right above her. Something was up there. No, not something. He was up there. But how? He had been outside, right outside, only seconds ago. And now, was he inside the attic? She stepped backward slowly, trying not to make a sound. A faint tap 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 echoed from above her head. Then another. He was knocking. On the attic hatch. She turned and ran into her bedroom, slamming the door behind her. Murphy followed, whining. She shoved a chair under the knob, her hands trembling as she did. Then she grabbed her baseball bat from under the bed. Knife in one hand, bat in the other. No idea what good it would do. Think, Sam. Think. She checked her window again. The yard below was empty. The pale man was gone. Just like before. Was it possible she imagined it all? A hallucination? Stress? She turned on her phone's flashlight again and aimed it at the far corners of her room. Nothing. Then, faintly, she heard it again. Breathing, but this time closer. Inside the walls. She pressed her ear against the drywall. The breath was behind it. She jerked back, eyes wide. Was there a crawl space? She didn't remember one. But this house was old. Built in 1890. It had its secrets. A sudden bang from the hallway made her scream. She rushed to the door and listened. Another bang. He was jumping. On the attic hatch. Trying to break through. She heard the wood strain. The metal hinges rattle. One loud creak. She stared up at the ceiling. The candle was burning lower now, shadows bouncing wildly. And then it happened. The hatch burst open. The wooden door slammed down with a heavy crash, the ladder unfolding with a metallic clang. Dust rained down like ash. She held her breath. No one came down, but she could hear him, shuffling, waiting. Murphy growled again. Then, as if drawn by a magnet, Murphy bolted out of the room, barking wildly. "Murph, N.O.!" she screamed. But it was too late. The dog disappeared into the hallway. His barks turned to yelps. Then silence. Horrible, total silence. Her chest felt like it would collapse. Tears welled up, but she blinked them away. She couldn't panic. Not yet. Then something dropped from the attic. A hand. Thin, pale, skeletal. It gripped the top rung of the ladder. And then another. The pale man pulled himself into view. Slowly, inhumanly slow. His limbs moved like wires under skin. No sound, not even breath now. Just motion. He paused halfway down, crouched like a spider clinging to the wall. And then he grinned. His mouth opened again, wider this time. Teeth like piano keys, long and too white, rows and rows of them. He didn't blink, didn't look away. She slammed the door, locked it, shoved the dresser against it using her full body weight. He was coming. She backed away just as the door handle twitched. And then it turned. Once, twice. The door didn't budge. A low growl came from the other side. Deep, guttural. Not quite human. He began to scratch. Long, slow strokes of nails or claws along the wood. Then tapping. Morse code? A rhythm? No. It was mocking her. The same 3 knocks he used before. Knock. 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 She turned to her closet, yanked it open. It was cramped, full of jackets and shoeboxes. She ducked inside, pulled the door mostly shut. The scratching outside stopped. Then silence again. Too quiet. And then he whispered her name. Sam. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even threatening. It was worse. It was tender, affectionate, like he knew her. Samantha. Come out now. She covered her mouth to keep from sobbing. She clutched the knife, hands shaking. You left the door unlocked earlier, he said. Did you forget, Sammy? That was a lie. She had locked it. Twice. He was playing games again. I've been watching you for a long time, he continued. Since you were little. You just never saw me. She whimpered. Tears streamed down her face. You always slept with your closet open, he added. Remember? Her eyes widened. How could he know that? Unless he'd been there. A loud crack as the bedroom door finally gave way. Wood splintered. The dresser groaned as it was pushed back. She covered her mouth tighter. The door creaked open fully. Floorboards groaned. He was inside. Where are you hiding, Sammy? She tried not to breathe, not to move. The light under the closet door dimmed. A shadow passed in front of it. Then a hand wrapped around the edge of the door. Long fingers splayed like a spider. She held her breath, closed her eyes. The door swung open, and there he was, bent at an impossible angle. His neck cocked, his mouth open in that grotesque grin.
Sam screamed.
She lunged with the knife. It went into him, right into the center of his chest. But there was no blood.
No scream.
Just a hiss, like steam escaping from a pipe. His hand wrapped around her wrist, cold as ice, grip like iron. She stabbed again, and again. Finally, he let go. She shoved past him, crawling over boxes and jackets. Ran for the window. She didn't stop to think. She jumped. The ground hit her hard. Her ankle twisted. Pain exploded in her leg. But she didn't care. She limped down the yard, not looking back. Behind her, she heard something slam against the glass. He was watching from her bedroom window, still smiling. The pain in Samantha's ankle was blinding. Every step felt like fire tearing through bone and tendon. But she pushed forward, half limping, half dragging herself down the cold asphalt of the driveway. The candle was gone, lost in the chaos. Her phone clutched in her left hand was still useless, stuck on the emergency screen with a stubborn, no service mocking her. Behind her, the house loomed like a great mouth swallowing stars.
No lights.
No sign of movement, just that damn window on the second floor. The same window where he stood moments ago, head tilted, skin like wax, teeth like blades. Gone. He wasn't there anymore. Samantha froze. Murphy. The dog hadn't come out.
Hier gut twisted.
She started to cry. Real, hot, aching sobs as guilt and terror collided in her chest. She had to get help. She limped toward the street, hoping, praying to find a neighbor's light, a car, anything. Her mind reeled as she passed the dark silhouettes of homes. Every single one pitch black. The whole block was down. Not just the power, dead. Even the moon was swallowed by clouds. Then something caught her eye. A figure, at the end of the street, standing beneath the old street lamp, which, of course, wasn't on. It was him. No question now. He wasn't hiding anymore. He wanted her to see. He took a step toward her. Another. Long, slow strides. She turned and ran. It wasn't graceful. Her ankle screamed with every movement, but adrenaline gave her power she didn't know she had. She made it to the neighbor's yard, Mrs. Trenton's house. An elderly widow who used to bake cookies for Sam every Christmas. Her door was shut, curtains drawn. She banged on it anyway. "Please, please," she cried. "Mrs. Trenton, it's Sam. Open the door. He's out here." No answer. She tried the knob. Locked. She slammed her fist against the door. "Please." Nothing. She glanced behind her. He was gone. The street was empty again. She turned back to the door and screamed. Because Mrs. Trenton was there now, right at the window beside the door, barely inches away. But her eyes were gone. Just two black pits. Empty. Her skin pale. Too pale. Her smile, that same impossible, stretched grin. Sam stumbled back, heart pounding like it would explode. Mrs. Trenton's head tilted, mimicking his exact motion. Sam ran again, across the lawn, leaping the hedge into the next yard. She didn't stop to process what she'd just seen. Was he copying people now? Was he inside them, or turning them into something else? She ducked behind a parked car, gasping for breath, trying to muffle her sobs. Her ankle throbbed with every heartbeat. Then her phone vibrated. One new text. Unknown number. She stared at it, blood draining from her face. "Come back inside. You left the door open again." She dropped the phone like it had burned her. Her hands were shaking uncontrollably now. Another message. "Murphy misses you." Her stomach turned. She knew what this was. Psychological warfare. He wanted her to come back, to walk right into his trap. But that also meant something else. He could use technology. He knew her number. That wasn't just supernatural, it was calculated. Suddenly, she heard a sound. Music. Faint. A nursery rhyme, sung softly, echoing from the direction of her house. "Hush, little baby. Don't say a word." She covered her ears, trying to block it out. It didn't help. She could still hear it inside her head. "Papa's gonna buy you a mockingbird." It grew louder. And if that mockingbird don't sing. She stood and ran again, across another yard, into another. She couldn't take it anymore. She had to get away. Her body had entered survival mode. The pain in her ankle dulled to background noise. Her lungs burned, but she ran. Eventually, she reached a familiar house. The Millers, a younger couple, mid-30s, had a toddler, always home. Lights, lights. Their porch light flickered, a flicker of hope in the endless night. She pounded on the door. Please, please help me. Movement behind the curtains. The door opened. Mr. Miller stood there, confused, wearing a bathrobe. His face lit up in shock.
Sam?
Are you okay? What the hell? He's in my house, she cried. Something's in there. He's chasing me. Please call the police, please. He pulled her inside without a word. The warmth hit her like a wave. Mrs. Miller rushed down the stairs. Oh my God, Sam? Are you hurt? He's Murphy. Her words tumbled out, barely coherent. Mr. Miller pulled out his phone. No signal, he muttered. We'll drive you to the station, Mrs. Miller said. Let's get you to the car. They helped her sit on the couch while Mrs. Miller fetched a first aid kit. Mr. Miller handed her a glass of water. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. What's going on, Sam? He asked gently. She opened her mouth to explain, and then stopped, because on the TV screen behind him, dark but reflective, she saw something move. Behind him, something pale. She stood so fast she knocked over the glass. Behind you! Mr. Miller turned. Nothing there. What? She pointed at the screen. I saw him. The couple exchanged a glance. Mrs. Miller hesitated. Sweetheart, maybe you hit your head. We'll get you to the hospital. Okay?
No.
You don't understand. He's real. He knows who I am. He was at the window, then in the attic, then inside Mrs. Trenton. Mrs. Miller froze. What? Mr. Miller asked. She said, Mrs. Trenton. They both turned pale. What about her? Mrs. Miller asked, voice soft. She was at her window. I saw her. Her eyes were gone, her smile. Mr. Miller shook his head.
Sam.
Mrs. Trenton passed away 3 weeks ago. The words hit like a hammer.
No, Sam whispered.
That's not, no, I saw her. She looked right at me. Mr. Miller opened his mouth to respond. But the lights went out. All at once. TV, lamps, everything. The house groaned in the silence. Then something shattered in the kitchen. Mrs. Miller screamed. Mr. Miller rushed toward the noise. Stay here, he barked. Sam couldn't breathe. She reached for her phone again. Still no signal. Another crash. A howl from the kitchen, wet, distorted. Then silence. A footstep. Then another. Slow. Deliberate. Not Mr. Miller. Mrs. Miller backed away, her eyes wide. Then a figure stepped out from the kitchen. It wasn't human. It looked like Mr. Miller but taller. Skinnier. His arms dangled like ropes. Its face was peeling, and underneath was him. The pale man, Sam, and Mrs. Miller both screamed. The creature hissed and lunged. They ran. Mrs. Miller grabbed her toddler from the upstairs room without a second thought, and they all bolted for the garage. Sam limped as fast as she could, her lungs on fire. The creature followed. Its limbs scratched against the walls. Laughter now, raspy and guttural. They burst through the garage door, climbed into the car. Mrs. Miller slammed it into reverse. The headlights flickered to life, and there he was, standing in the driveway, smiling. He stood motionless in the headlights, his silhouette stretched and unnatural, casting long shadows that bled into the fog. The pale man's face was exactly the same. Expressionless yet grinning, mouth stretched to its full impossible width, eyes hollow and distant like tunnels that led straight to nothingness. Mrs. Miller gasped, frozen in the driver's seat. What the hell is that? Go!
Sam screamed.
The pale man tilted his head and took one step forward. Just one. But it sent a paralyzing wave of dread through them all. Even the toddler in the back seat whimpered and pressed his face against his mother's shoulder. Mrs. Miller snapped out of it and slammed her foot on the gas. The car jerked backward, tires screeching. Sam looked back through the rear window, watching the driveway and the house fade away into blackness. They turned out onto the road. The headlights cut through the dense fog as the car sped forward, the tires skimming patches of water from the earlier rain. The silence in the car was deafening. No one spoke, barely even breathed. "Where are we going?" Sam finally asked, her voice raw. "The station," Mrs. Miller said, white-knuckling the steering wheel. "Downtown. They'll have backup generators and radios." Sam nodded, then looked at her phone again. No signal. She pulled up the GPS, blank.
No satellites.
The map couldn't even load. She swallowed hard. "How can this be happening?" she whispered. Mrs. Miller didn't answer. They sped past empty homes, every light dead. It was like the entire neighborhood had been pulled into some different realm. Even the stars above were gone. Clouds were thick, smothering. Sam kept looking over her shoulder, expecting to see him there in the road, following. But there was nothing, until they reached the intersection. That's when the streetlights flickered on. Every single one after another, like a wave of electricity brought back from the dead. It should have brought relief, but instead, it felt orchestrated, controlled. Sam leaned forward. "Do you see that?" Mrs. Miller nodded slowly. "Yes, but that's not possible, because there, under the fourth streetlight, was him. Again, closer now. His body was wrong, bent backward, arms dragging the ground. His head lolled to the side, and his grin never changed. The toddler began to cry, his small voice cutting through the silence like a knife. "I don't understand," Mrs. Miller whispered. "We left him behind. He can't be ahead of us." "He's not human," Sam said. No one argued. Mrs. Miller swerved around the pale man, tires screeching. She didn't even slow down. The figure didn't move, just turned his head to watch them pass. His neck twisted a full 180 degrees as he followed them with dead, gleaming eyes. The town center came into view minutes later. Buildings dark, streets empty. The police station sat at the corner, a squat brick building with floodlights normally lit around the perimeter. But not tonight. Darkness swallowed it whole. They parked in the lot and leapt out. Mrs. Miller clutched her son tight as they approached the station doors. They were unlocked. "Hello?" she called out. No answer. They stepped inside, the fluorescent lights flickering faintly, powered by a failing generator. The place was in shambles. Chairs overturned, papers scattered. Sam noticed something red smeared across the tiled floor. A long streak of blood, disappearing around the corner of the front desk. "No," she muttered. Mrs. Miller stepped back toward the door. That's when they heard the voice, a whisper, from deeper inside the station. "Sam." They froze. "He's here," Sam said. Suddenly, all the lights went out again. Total darkness. The sound of crawling echoed from somewhere down the hall. Then laughter, low, mocking, echoing through the air vents like a distant echo of someone drowning. Mrs. Miller held her child tight. "What do we do?" Sam searched blindly for a flashlight behind the front desk. Her fingers found one and she flipped it on. Thankfully, it worked. The beam cut through the dark, landing on a locker room door slightly ajar. A hand reached out through the gap, covered in blood. She screamed. Then the hand curled its fingers and pointed toward her, like it knew her. "Back to the car," Mrs. Miller shouted. They turned, but the front doors slammed shut with a deafening bang. All of them screamed. Sam turned the flashlight toward the doors. Something stood there on the other side, not moving, watching. The pale man's outline was unmistakable. His grin pressed against the glass, fogging it as he breathed. Then a crack appeared in the window. The pressure from his face broke it. Mrs. Miller clutched her son tight and ran for the nearest hallway. Sam followed. They barreled through abandoned interrogation rooms, dark cells with iron bars, and the faint echo of a distant radio buzzing somewhere. "All units, static, repeat. Stay inside." The voice cut out. They reached the evidence room and slammed the door behind them. Sam braced it with her full weight. Mrs. Miller found a metal chair and wedged it under the knob. They were breathing hard. The room was ice cold. "Where the hell is everyone?"
Sam whispered.
Mrs. Miller shook her head. "I don't know. This feels like a nightmare. Like we never left your house." Sam looked around the room. Racks of confiscated weapons lined the walls. One of them, a shotgun, was still in its case. She fumbled for the keys hanging beside the rack. "No way I'm going down without a fight," she muttered. She unlocked the case and handed the weapon to Mrs. Miller. "Do you know how to use it?" Sam asked. Mrs. Miller looked down at her son, then back at the gun. "I'll figure it out." Suddenly, the door behind them creaked. The chair began to bend inward, like something very strong was pressing against it.
Top, top, top.
Sam raised the flashlight and aimed the beam at the crack under the door. Shadow. Movement. Then a single white finger slid under the crack and tapped the tile. "Go away!" she screamed. The finger withdrew. Then silence. Long, unbearable silence. The chair stopped bending. Sam and Mrs. Miller exchanged looks. Maybe he left. Then the ceiling tile above them caved in. He dropped into the room like a spider from the rafters. Mrs. Miller screamed. Sam swung the flashlight, striking him across the face. He didn't even flinch. He moved toward her, arms jerking like a marionette on tangled strings. Mrs. Miller fired the shotgun. The blast echoed like a bomb, shaking the walls. The pale man jerked back, but didn't fall. He stood there, a smoking hole in his shoulder, still smiling. Sam didn't wait. She grabbed Mrs. Miller and the child and rushed out of the now-destroyed door. They didn't stop running until they found the back exit. It was jammed. Sam shoved her shoulder into it again and again, until finally, crack, the door burst open and they tumbled into the alley behind the station. The air outside was colder.
Wet.
Still. "Back to the car?" Mrs. Miller asked. Sam shook her head. "He'll be waiting." The child was crying now, quietly. Mrs. Miller hugged him close. "What does he want?" Sam looked back at the building, where a single flickering light now glowed in the evidence room window. She didn't have an answer, but one thing was clear. He wasn't just haunting her house. He was haunting her. They didn't go back to the car. They didn't go back to the house. Samantha, Mrs. Miller, and her son wandered into the maze of alleyways behind the town center, surrounded by brick buildings that felt abandoned, like a shell of the town that once existed. It was 2:47 a.m. Sam checked her phone again, but the air felt timeless, as if the night had swallowed the concept of morning. And behind them, always just out of sight, they could feel him, watching, waiting, feeding on their fear. Their pace slowed as exhaustion set in. Every breath Sam took burned like cold fire in her lungs. Her injured ankle throbbed relentlessly. Mrs. Miller was trembling, her toddler long past sobbing, now eerily silent. His wide eyes locked on shadows that moved without wind. Sam stopped beneath an overhang and leaned against a graffiti-covered wall. "He doesn't stop, no matter where we go. It's like he knows where we'll be." Mrs. Miller glanced down the alley. "Why you? Why your house? This thing. He's after you." Sam shook her head. "I don't know. I didn't do anything. I didn't summon him or open a cursed book or whatever. I was just home alone. That's it." But deep down, something stirred. A memory. Long buried. She hadn't thought of it in years. When she was 10, she'd stayed at her grandmother's house while her parents vacationed. A remote cabin in the woods. One night, she wandered into the attic, drawn by a weird humming sound, and she saw something there. Something like a mirror, but the reflection was wrong. She couldn't even remember what she'd seen. Only the feeling. Cold, ancient, empty. Her grandmother found her and forbade her from ever going up there again. She never asked why. Was that it? Did she let something in? "Samantha," Mrs. Miller asked gently. Sam blinked, pulled from the memory. I think I saw him before. A long time ago. Mrs. Miller didn't ask questions. There was no time. A deep clunk echoed through the alley, like metal scraping concrete. Then a faint whisper, "Sam." The pale man's voice slithered through the cracks in the walls, through vents, through silence. The flashlight flickered in Sam's hand, then died. The alley plunged into darkness. Then a glow appeared ahead, soft, sickly white, like a lantern behind frosted glass. It grew brighter, closer, as footsteps approached. They turned to run, but he was behind them, too. They were surrounded, trapped. Mrs. Miller clutched her son.
No.
"Please." Sam looked up and saw a fire escape ladder just a few feet up. "We go up," she shouted. She jumped, barely catching the lowest rung, pain exploding in her leg as she pulled herself up. Mrs. Miller passed the child to her, then climbed up after. The metal groaned under their weight. Below, the pale man stepped into the alley, arms hanging low, head tilted to the side. He didn't follow immediately. He just watched. Sam reached the rooftop, hoisted the toddler over, then helped Mrs. Miller. They backed away from the ledge. Wind swept across the roof, carrying with it the stench of rot. "He's not climbing," Mrs. Miller said. Sam didn't feel relieved. "Maybe he doesn't need to." Then the child pointed. "Look." They turned. At the center of the roof stood a door. An old, rusted service door, standing slightly ajar. A dim, flickering light glowed from within. "Is this an exit?" Mrs. Miller asked. Sam shook her head. "It's another trap." And yet, they were out of options. They stepped through the door. Inside was not a stairwell or maintenance hallway. It was a hallway from Sam's house, exactly recreated. Same carpet, same wallpaper, same family portraits on the walls. But everything was wrong. Dark,
Wet.
breathing. The walls moved slightly like lungs. The pictures bled from the corners of the frames. A familiar hallway, in a place that could not exist. "He's inside my mind," Sam said. "This is what he wants." "You," Mrs. Miller whispered. They walked forward, slowly, the floorboards creaking underfoot even though there were no visible boards. Every step echoed too loudly. A door waited at the end. Sam reached for the knob. "Wait," Mrs. Miller said, but Sam pushed it open. Inside, the attic, exactly as it had been when she was 10. Dusty, wooden. That same mirror stood in the center, covered by a cloth. And standing beside it, the pale man closer than ever. He stepped toward her.
No chase.
No games, just inevitability. His mouth opened, wider than it should have, teeth gleaming.
No tang.
No sound, just invitation. "I remember," Sam said. He nodded. "You were in the mirror. You followed me home." He reached toward her, one hand outstretched. Sam stared at him, at herself. This thing had clung to her for over a decade. Unseen, dormant, but it had always been there, watching, waiting for her to be alone. "No more running," she whispered, and she pulled the cloth off the mirror. The reflection didn't show them. It showed the real world, the rooftop, the alley below, the exit. Mrs. Miller's voice cried out, distorted. "Samantha, come back." The pale man lunged. Sam grabbed the frame and stepped into the mirror. Pain tore through her like static. She screamed. Then she fell. She woke up gasping. Daylight. She was on the roof of the building, the sun rising over the town. Birds chirped. Mrs. Miller sat beside her, clutching her child. They were all there, alive. "I thought you were gone," Mrs. Miller whispered. Sam sat up.
No.
"I made it out." Her phone buzzed. Signal. A full bar. 10 missed calls. Dozens of texts. All time-stamped during the night she was trapped. But none came through. She stood up, limping. "What now?" Mrs. Miller asked. Sam looked toward her house in the distance. Then at the morning light bathing the streets in warmth. "I don't know," she said, "but I'm never being alone again. and in a window high above them, reflected in a piece of broken glass. A smile. Just for a moment, then gone. Lila Summers turned the last lock on her front door at precisely 8:17 p.m., exhaling a shaky breath as the metal clicked shut. Her heart pounded, not from fear, not yet, but from relief. She just closed the final chapter on her senior year. Everything from the high school auditorium felt like a memory she'd shake by morning. Left behind her, the responsibilities, the confrontations, the anticipation. What still lay ahead now was freedom. A summer stretching out before her like a blank page. Except Lila was alone. Her older sister Jenna, the prim, studious one, had left right after graduation to start her new job close to Boston. Their mom was away with work at a medical conference overseas, and their younger brother, a 10-year-old tornado named Tyler, was at his father's for 2 weeks. The house was all hers. Big, 2 stories, 8 rooms, hollow echoes in every hallway. Furnished, but still empty. She flicked on the lights in the kitchen and dropped her backpack onto the counter. Spaghetti for dinner, simple, cheap, and easy. A half-gallon of milk hummed in the fridge, waiting for her to remember breakfast tomorrow. "It's about time," she murmured to herself. "My time." She started a pot of water on the stove, reached for a bowl, and that's when she heard it. A hushed tap-tap coming from inside the wall, just behind the fridge. She froze, spoon halfway out of the cupboard.
Top, top.
Her stomach dropped. All summer long, this would be her home, her sanctuary. But right now it felt wrong, unsettling. She glanced down at the tile floor. Nothing spilled. No evidence of recent pests. But the tapping came again.
Top, top.
Paused. Then repeated. Once. Then twice. A pause. Once. She swallowed. "Probably just the pipes," she whispered. But the house was old, 100 years. Pipes rattled. Joists creaked. Pavement cooled. Still, her pulse reverberated. She grabbed her phone from her pocket, full battery, and flipped it on.
No notifications.
Okay. She stared at the wall. "You're probably just settling." The water began to boil. She dropped in the spaghetti, heard a softer tap. Tap. She ignored it, focusing instead on stirring. The small sound followed the spoon's rhythm, as though something tapped every third turn. She finished cooking, set the table for one, and sat down. Spaghetti, buttered roll, a glass of iced tea. All simple, all comforting. About halfway through, the tapping returned, this time louder, closer, right behind her. At first, she told herself it was only in her head. Maybe the table was brushing against the wooden floor. But then it came again, no echoes, no echo. Just tap. Pause.
Top.
Steady. Nearby. She felt a prick of fear. Lila dropped her fork and stood, gathering the plate but holding it loosely in her hands. With trembling steps, she walked toward the fridge, placing the plate on the counter. Took a deep breath. Inches from the wall. A full fungus of cracked paint, old nail holes, worn dowels. "Hello?" she said, voice soft. "Is someone there?" Tapping stopped. Dead silence. She waited. No radio. No television on. No background buzz. Just her heartbeat and the kitchen hum. She swallowed. Turned away. Back to the table to settle her meal again. But the floorboards groaned behind her. Her eyes shot toward the wall. That same point. She let the dinner plate slide off the edge of the counter. Clatter. The spoon fell to the floor. Clink. Metal vibrating across tile. At the same moment she heard a thud behind her, as though something heavy had struck the opposite wall. She jumped and spun around. Nothing. No one. She sprinted to the front hall, threw her backpack onto the stairs, and grabbed her phone again. Then she checked the windows, locked. She double-checked every door. Locked, latched, secure. And she rechecked them yet again, her fists shaking. What was that? She flicked through all the rooms, flipping lights on and off and calling out, "Hello!" Her voice echoed, but no reply came. The second bedroom, empty. The third storage, old boxes. The bathroom, nothing. Living room, nothing. The sun sets in early summer, but darkness here fell late. It was only 8:45, twilight still lingering. She returned to the kitchen, determined to finish dinner, telling herself it was nothing. Just the way old houses groan. Just the AC kicking on or the temperature shifting. The spaghetti cooled. The iced tea warmed. She sighed and told herself to go upstairs, take a shower and go to sleep. Yet as she lifted the plate again, the tap started. This time slower, louder, intentional. She nearly dropped the plate. She dove toward it, slid it into the sink, and backed away, eyes fixed on the source. She fumbled for a spoon to shatter against the counters, but the tapping stopped. She stared, held her breath, waited. Then a whisper, a low hiss coming from behind her. A breath of a word. Lila! Her heart stopped. She spun. But nothing. Just empty stove, empty counters. She clicked on every light. Fridge hummed loud. Silence. She pressed her good ear against the drywall. Nothing. Just silence. Then out of the corner of her eye she glimpsed something scrabble past the kitchen floor on her left. Duck slow, shadow flick. Stop! She yelled. Stop! She jumped forward, grabbed the flashlight she'd stuffed into a kitchen drawer last spring. Had planned to use it maybe if power went out, but never needed it. She turned it on. Light spilled across the floor, across the walls. Nothing. Just the refrigerator's side panel. Paint chipped. Baseboard scuffed. She shook the flashlight. Show yourself.
Top.
She jumped, nearly dropping the flashlight. The beam hit the wall. The cupboard on the far side of the kitchen. A single cabinet door shook slightly. Was it wind?
Impossible, Windows locked. No breeze.
The AC humming behind her. She pressed forward. Who's there? She stretched her hand out ahead of her, fingertip grazing the door. It was icy cold. Then the tapping moved again, upward along the wall. Slow scratch, scratch, scratch. She froze, breathing ragged. Tapping followed her up the stairwell once she turned to go.
Top, scratch, top, scratch.
She heard it all the way to the second-floor hallway. Door to Jenna's old room, to Tyler's, to the hall bath, to her own. Standing with flashlight in hand, heart pounding. She checked the windows again, locked. Phone, still lit from flashlight app. Battery still 90%. Rain hadn't started yet, but darkness closed in. Lila slid across the length of the hallway to her door. Hand trembling, she inserted her key. She almost dropped it. She closed her door and turned on the lamp. Sat on the bed. Dropped flashlight, hugged her knees.
Top.
Silence. Then a breath. And quiet. 2 long minutes of quiet. She leaned back, had just closed her eyes. From deep inside the wall, I'm inside. Lila didn't sleep that night. Not really. She lay with her eyes open, staring at the ceiling as moonlight crawled slowly across her room. She heard every groan of the floorboards, every tick of the baseboard heaters, every distant rumble of wind outside. But nothing was louder than her heartbeat and the echo of that whisper still lodged in her mind. I'm inside. That voice hadn't come from the hall. It hadn't come from a speaker or the air vent. It had come from inside the wall. At some point around 4:00 a.m., when the horizon began to pale, she fell into a restless doze. She dreamt of voices mumbling beneath her bed, of pale fingers reaching up through the floorboards, of someone crawling slowly through the hollow places in her walls, waiting until her eyes finally shut. When the sun was fully up and birds chirped like nothing had happened, she found herself still dressed, still on the bed, curled up tightly. She hadn't been dreaming. Not all of it. The whisper was real. At 11:12 a.m., after brushing her teeth and forcing down a granola bar, she texted her neighbor across the street, Mr. Emery, a retired teacher who'd lived on Oakwood Lane for over 30 years. Hey, Mr. Emery, can I ask you something weird? Did anyone else who lived in this house hear things? Like tapping? Or whispers? Took him 5 minutes to reply. You okay, Lila? Yeah. Just heard some stuff last night. Maybe the pipes? That house is old. Built in 1911. But yes, others have said similar things. You're not the first. She sat bolt upright, fingers hovering above the screen. What do you mean? Who else? What things? Another pause. Then, 2 tenants before you moved out after 3 months. Claimed they kept hearing someone in the attic. Whispering. One left in the middle of the night, left all their furniture behind. Lila's stomach dropped. Did anything happen to them? I never saw them again. Realtor handled it. Was it just them? Some say the original builder, Mr. Warren, disappeared inside the house in 1921. Never found. His wife had him declared dead. House stayed vacant until the 1930s. Then again in the 60s and 90s. Always came back to this. Tapping in the walls. A voice calling your name. Lila dropped the phone. Cold sweat beaded at the back of her neck. She went to the basement. That was the one place she hadn't looked. The stairs groaned under her weight as she descended into the dark. She pulled the chain for the overhead light. The bulb flickered, then stabilized, casting a pale yellow glow over dusty boxes and old bikes. Concrete floor. Exposed brick. Rows of wooden shelves her mom used for storage. The walls were thicker here. Sound didn't travel the same way. But even down there, with the furnace humming low, she heard it.
Top.
One deliberate knock, low and deep, from the far corner, where the foundation curved into a crawl space under the original house frame. She stepped closer. The tap came again.
Top. Top.
Then a new sound. A faint dragging, like nails scraping down wood from behind the wall. She turned and bolted upstairs, heart pounding. Back in the kitchen, she stood frozen by the table, hands on the counter to steady herself. I can't do this, she whispered. I need to leave. She grabbed her phone again, called her mom, straight to voicemail. She tried her dad. Voicemail. Then Jenna. Come on, pick up. Pick up. Jenna answered on the 3rd ring. Lila? Her voice normal, casual. So out of sync with the dread swelling in Lila's throat. Jenna. Something's wrong with the house. I heard whispering in the walls. There's tapping and voices, and the neighbor said people left because of it. Whoa, slow down. Voices in the walls. Yes, she cried. It said my name. It said, I'm inside. I don't know what to do. There was a pause on the other end. Okay, Jenna said carefully. You're just tired. You just graduated. You're under a lot of stress. I'm not imagining this. Okay. Take a breath. Have you checked everywhere? The attic? Maybe it's a raccoon. It's not an animal. Lila's voice cracked. Silence again. I'll come visit, Jenna said at last. Soon. Tomorrow, maybe. Just try to keep the lights on. Stay somewhere public today. Go to the cafe or something. I don't want to be alone, Lila whispered. I know. Just one night. Okay? That night, the tapping started earlier. Before sundown. At first it came from the 2nd floor hallway behind the linen closet. Then it moved. Toward her room. She paced the kitchen. Flashlight clutched in one hand. Her phone in the other. She tried to record the sounds, but every time she hit record, the noise stopped. Dead silence. As soon as she stopped recording, tap. Then, Lila. Her name hissed again, this time accompanied by soft scratching. A slow rub of skin on wood, like fingers testing the interior of the drywall. Then, let me out. She fled to the porch. Called Mr. Emery. He answered on the 1st ring. I need to ask. Has anyone opened the walls before? Could something be inside? There was a long pause. I don't know, he said. But there's a panel in the upstairs closet. Old crawl space hatch. Might be worth checking. Why hasn't anyone sealed it? Every time someone does, it opens again. Lila hung up without saying goodbye. She climbed the stairs. walked the hallway in near darkness, came to the hallway closet, opened it, moved aside the boxes and vacuum, and found it. A square of plywood, fixed loosely into the back wall. Old nails rusted in corners. A string attached. Her flashlight beam flickered. Her phone buzzed. A text. From an unknown number. "I'm waiting." She dropped the phone. The plywood shifted. On its own. Just slightly. As if something inside had pulled it inward. Lila stood frozen in the closet. The plywood panel in the back wall shifted again. Not outward this time, but inward, as though something behind it was tugging gently at the bottom edge. A breath of stale air pushed into the closet. She took a shaky step back, her flashlight trembling in her hand. The beam flickered as it caught on the rough grain of the wood. There was something written on it. She squinted closer. Carved, faintly, with what looked like fingernails or the tip of something sharp. It read, "He watches." Her mouth went dry. The closet behind her was silent except for her own breathing and the low buzz of her flashlight. She reached out with her free hand and touched the plywood. It was loose, barely attached to the wall. If she pulled, it would come away easily. Don't open it. Every instinct screamed at her. But she had to know. She had to see. Gritting her teeth, she slipped her fingers behind the edge of the board and pulled. It came free with a dry pop of old nails, the wood groaning slightly as it gave way. Dust puffed into her face, making her cough. She shined her flashlight into the opening. Behind it was a narrow tunnel, no more than 3 feet high, stretching into complete darkness. The walls were unfinished. Bare wooden beams and lath, thick with cobwebs and dust. The floor was just plywood planks over joists. She saw scratch marks, some long and shallow, some short and frantic, scraped across the boards. Something had been in there. Recently. She should have called someone. She should have shut the panel and never looked back. Instead, she got on her hands and knees and crawled inside. The air grew colder with each movement. Her flashlight cast long shadows across the curved tunnel walls. The space smelled of mold and dry rot, old wood and something faintly metallic. Her breath fogged in the beam. She moved slowly, carefully. Every few feet, she found another scratch. On the walls, the floor, some marks looked like they had been made with nails. Others, claws? A chill ran down her back. After crawling for nearly 20 feet, the passage opened slightly into a narrow chamber between walls. She turned her head slowly. The space was larger, maybe 4 by 6 feet, but still low. She could sit, barely. And there, at the far end, was a pile of fabric. A blanket? A piece of clothing? She crawled closer, heart hammering in her ears. The fabric was a rotted sleeping bag, shredded along the sides. Beside it lay a stack of old papers. She reached for one. A newspaper clipping. She shined the flashlight onto it. The headline read, "Local man missing in mysterious disappearance. 1921. Her eyes widened. She shuffled through more pages. Articles dating back to the 1940s, 1960s. Then more recent ones, all with similar headlines. Oakwood Lane mystery continues. Teen reports whispers in historic home. House on 46 Oakwood sold again after complaints. She dropped the papers. On the wall behind them was more carving. Scratched in letters that staggered and wobbled as though written by someone in a panic. Don't listen. He's real. Never alone. She turned to crawl back and froze. Her flashlight beam caught something glinting in the far corner. Pair of eyes. Too low for a person standing. Too wide for a person crawling. The eyes blinked. Then came the tap.
Top. Top. Top.
Louder now. Closer. Like it was echoing inside her own skull. Her body locked up. She couldn't move. Couldn't blink. Then the voice whispered again. This time no longer soft and patient, but giddy. Found you. Lila screamed. Scrambled backward. Ripping her shirt on a nail. Scrambling through dust and webs. The flashlight bouncing wildly in her hand. Behind her, the thing moved. Fast. She heard the scrape of something hard on wood, and the thump-thump-thump of a body too long for the space trying to follow. She burst out of the crawl space, slammed the panel shut, and collapsed in the closet, sobbing. For locked in, she didn't sleep again. Not even after blocking the closet with a chair and her dresser. Not after calling Jenna and begging her to come immediately. Not after checking every room, turning on every light, and holding her phone in one hand, flashlight in the other. She sat in the hallway all night, knees pulled to her chest, facing the closet, listening, waiting, but the house remained quiet, too quiet.
No pipes. No cracks. No tapping.
That was almost worse. The next day, Jenna arrived at 11:05 a.m. She pulled into the driveway and stepped out of her car wearing jeans and a heavy jacket despite the summer heat. Her face went pale the moment she saw Lila. "Oh my God," she said. "You look. What happened?" Lila just grabbed her and sobbed. They sat in the kitchen while Lila told her everything. About the voice, the crawl space, the eyes, the newspaper clippings. Jenna listened, arms folded tightly, her mouth tight. "You're sure you didn't imagine it?" she said after a while. "I know what I saw." Jenna paused, then nodded. "Okay, let's look." Together, they went to the hallway closet, moved the dresser and chair, opened the panel. The crawl space was empty.
No papers. No sleeping bag. No scratches.
Nothing. Even the carved warnings were gone, like it had never been there. Jenna looked skeptical but said nothing. That night she slept over. Lila felt safer. They watched movies until 2:00 a.m., eventually dozed off in the living room. At 3:11 a.m., Lila woke up. The house was dark. Jenna was gone. She sat up, heart racing. "Jenna?" No answer. She stood, walked slowly to the hallway. Dark. Then she heard it. The tapping. From upstairs. Then Jenna's voice, calling softly, "Lila! It's inside." "Jenna?" Lila's voice trembled as she crept up the staircase, flashlight clutched in one hand. The hall above was still, unnaturally quiet, like a vacuum had sucked all the warmth and air from the space. She passed the closet door. It hung open now. Wide open. The plywood panel had been torn away again. Not removed gently like before. Ripped. Splinters clung to jagged nails. The remnants of the panel strewn across the hallway floor like pieces of a broken ribcage. She turned slowly toward the end of the hall. The second call came again, quieter this time. "Lila, it's inside." Jenna's voice, but off. The tone was just wrong, like it was trying to sound like Jenna, but something behind it was smiling, mocking. Lila's stomach twisted. She turned on her phone flashlight, holding both lights steady. "Jenna?" she called again, louder this time. Silence. Then, a soft thud from her bedroom. The door was cracked open just a hair. Lila approached it, every nerve in her body screaming to run the other way. She pushed the door open. The room was empty, bed untouched, closet doors wide open. Shadows pooled in the corners, too deep and still. She turned to leave, but something caught her eye. On the floor, just beneath her dresser. A fingernail. No, not a fake one. A real one. Yellowed, cracked, and torn at the edge, as though it had been ripped off during a struggle. Her knees weakened. Then another voice spoke. "She's gone." Lila spun around, flashlight jerking wildly. Nothing. Just her own breath. Shaky, rapid, the flashlight's beam bouncing along the ceiling. She stepped back into the hallway and called Jenna's name again. No answer. Her phone had no signal. She dialed 911 anyway. No ring.
No static.
Just silence. Then a single line of text appeared on the screen. "Too late. 6. The thing in the walls. Lila ran. Not into her room. Not down the stairs. She ran for the basement. It was the only place left she hadn't fully checked. She didn't care anymore if it made sense. She didn't care what logic said. The thing was in the walls. But maybe, just maybe, she could trap it or find Jenna if she was even still alive. She yanked the basement door open and charged down the stairs 2 at a time. The lights down there flickered as she reached the bottom. The air was thick, almost syrupy, oppressive, and wet. The basement no longer smelled like dust and mildew. It smelled like meat. Something had died down here. She gagged as she moved through the maze of cardboard boxes and sagging shelves. Then she saw the crawlspace hatch, different from the one upstairs. Low to the ground, this one was carved into the base of the wall, a rectangle barely large enough to crawl into. She hadn't noticed it before. Maybe it hadn't been there before. It was open. A faint blue light glowed from within. And there, beside the hatch, something was scratched into the concrete. I am the walls. The sentence was long, the letters uneven, as though made by someone trembling or laughing. She bent down, peered into the crawlspace. At the far end of the tunnel, something moved. Not quickly, not menacingly, just a slow shifting like someone adjusting their position on a cot. Then 2 hands appeared, too long, too thin. Skin stretched like plastic wrap over twisted bone. They gripped the edges of the crawlspace and began pulling. Lila backed up. The thing emerged slowly, headfirst. Its skull was lopsided, like it had once been human, but grown in the wrong shape, warped by years of darkness. Its mouth was wrong. Too wide, too many teeth. It whispered as it came, "You let me out." She turned and fled, slamming the basement door shut behind her. Thudded once, hard, from the other side. She ran for the front door, unlocked it, and threw it open. Jenna was standing on the porch. She looked pale, soaked in sweat, her pupils wide and trembling. "Lila," she whispered, "don't let it out again." Then collapsed. 7. Jenna's truth, she was breathing, but barely. Lila pulled her inside, locked the door, and dragged her to the couch. After a few minutes, Jenna's eyes fluttered open. "What happened?" Lila asked. "Where were you?" Jenna winced. Her voice was hoarse. "I woke up. Something was calling me. Your voice, but not. I followed it upstairs. Then, I was in the walls." "You what?" "It opened up in the closet. I didn't even think. Kept calling. I crawled in." Tears welled in her eyes. "It's alive, Lila. The house. The walls. It's not a ghost. It's something else. It uses your voice. My voice. Whatever you'll follow. Then it takes you. How did you get out?" Jenna shook her head. "I don't know. It let me go. Or maybe it wants something now. From you." They both fell silent. Lila stood. "We're leaving," she said. But the windows were now black. Not dark, black, as though someone had painted over the glass from the outside. The front door was gone. Where it had been was now just blank drywall.
No, Lila whispered.
Jenna stood up slowly. "It's too late," she said. "It's not just in the walls anymore." Then, without warning, she began to cry. Softly at first, then louder. Her eyes went blank. She raised her hands and clawed at her own face. Blood trickled down. "Jenna!" Lila grabbed her. "What are you doing?" Jenna looked up. But it wasn't her anymore. Not fully. "You called it," she said. "And now it's yours." Lila stumbled backward from Jenna. Heart pounding, breath ragged. "Jenna," she said again, voice cracking. "This isn't you. Please, fight it." But Jenna just tilted her head. Smiled with her mouth, not her eyes. "There's no Jenna anymore. Only echoes." And with that, she walked calmly, mechanically, toward the hallway. Lila hesitated, torn between chasing her and running for the nearest object to defend herself with. She chose the latter, grabbed a fireplace poker from beneath the mantel and followed. Jenna was at the closet again, standing before the crawlspace, now gaping wider than it ever had before. Lila gasped. The opening was now impossibly large, wide enough to walk into. And inside, not wood, not beams, teeth. The tunnel's walls were lined with jagged, yellowed teeth, wet and throbbing with slow pulses like something breathing. Gums lined the base, twitching as if waiting to chew. A tongue, slick, red, serpentine, slithered out slightly, curling as if tasting the air. Jenna stepped toward it.
No.
Lila lunged, grabbing her arm. "You're not going in there." Jenna turned, eyes dead, mouth slack, and said, with a guttural whisper not her own, "You already did. 9. The whisper's origin. Lila shoved her backward, hard. Jenna hit the hallway wall with a dull thud and crumpled to the floor, unconscious, or worse. The whisper started again, closer now, coming from everywhere, not through her ears, inside her head. Whisper, whimper, welcome,
Mine.
The walls around her flexed, groaned, paint peeled upward, wood cracked and curled like dead skin. She heard footsteps inside the walls, scratching, pacing, and then her own voice whispered back, "Let me out!" It echoed from the crawl space, and from the floorboards, and from beneath her. She looked down. The hardwood beneath her feet was shifting, bowing upward like something was pushing from below. Then a hand burst through, pale,
Familiar.
her own. It grabbed her ankle. She screamed and kicked it off, falling backward into the stair rail, which splintered under her weight. The house groaned again, now loud, vibrating. Hungry, she dragged Jenna's limp body into the bathroom and slammed the door, blocked it with the sink cabinet. Silence. Only the sound of her panicked breath. She looked around the room. Something about it felt different, not safe but less aware, as though the walls didn't watch quite as closely here. In the mirror, her reflection stared back, but blinked a second later than it should have. She leaned in. Her reflection did not. Instead, it smiled. "I'm ready," it said. Buried truth. She didn't sleep. She watched the mirror until sunrise. Jenna never woke. And when daylight finally came, real daylight, pouring through the upstairs window, she didn't believe it. Not at first. But the door opened again. The front door was there, unlocked. Lila didn't hesitate. She carried Jenna, still breathing, shallow and slow, out of the house. She didn't stop. Not until she was 2 blocks away, barefoot and bleeding, screaming for help. An elderly couple saw her and called 911. The police investigated. The house was searched. They found nothing.
No crawlspace.
No newspaper clippings. No tunnel of teeth. Just an old Victorian with poor insulation, bad wiring, and dust from decades of neglect. But Lila knew. So did Jenna once she woke in the hospital and told the exact same story. They never went back. The house was boarded up, then condemned. But it was never torn down, no matter how many times Lila asked. 11. 5 years later, Lila moved 3 states away, changed her number, cut her hair. Jenna did the same. They stayed close, trauma binding them together like family. But Lila never quite left that house. Not really. Every creak of a wall, every whisper in the pipes, every bad dream, it always came back to her. One night, she received a package with no return address. Inside, an old photograph of the house on Oakwood Lane. In the window, top left, stood her reflection, smiling. 12. The final whisper. Lila doesn't sleep anymore. Jenna, they say, stopped talking entirely 6 months ago. Every once in a while, Lila thinks about driving back. Just once. To make sure. But something in her always stops her. Because sometimes, on quiet nights, when the world has fallen asleep and her lights are off, she hears it. From inside the walls. Still here. Still listening. Come home. And worst of all, you already did. The house phone rang at 2:13 a.m. Bella Harding jolted awake, fingers twitching around her phone as if expecting it instead. Her bedroom was pitch dark, the glow-in-the-dark numbers on the clock face still readable. Her heartbeat raced as the shrill ring continued. Once, twice, a third time. before it stopped abruptly. Probably a wrong number, she thought, exhaling. She reached for her phone on the nightstand. Nothing, no missed calls, no voicemails. She waited, expecting another ring. It didn't come. Her legs hung over the bed's edge. She stared at the closed bedroom door, her palms sweaty. On the short walk to the living room, barefoot on soft carpet, every creak felt louder than thunder. In the kitchen, the analog house phone rested on its cradle with an eerie stillness. Her bare toes brushed the cold tile as she reached forward and picked it up.
No di alto un.
She lifted the receiver to her ear and listened. Only silence. Was it disconnected? No, the cordless downstairs answered. She fetched it. Same result, no tone. She placed them both back. Her pulse thundered. Still awake, she hovered near the window, reflecting on the day. She was 22, working a dead-end job at a call center. Tonight was a rare chance to unwind. No roommate, no responsibilities. Just a horror movie marathon on the couch with popcorn. She'd fallen asleep early. Was she really dreaming? But the ringing was so lucid, so loud. She checked her phone again. Battery 54%. Nothing. She considered sleeping in the living room. But she hesitated, remembered all the movies she'd watched as a kid. Killers sneaking in. Instead, she returned to bed, pulled the comforter close, thought maybe she'd been woken by an open mic test, or someone using her landline. But landline test calls? Old-fashioned. Still, she couldn't sleep. 2:47 a.m. Almost 35 minutes later. It rang again. This time, several times. A frantic ring, each pulse unnatural. Bella bolted up. She sprang to her feet and raced down the hall. The phone on the kitchen wall rang again as she entered the room. She slung the receiver off the cradle. Hello. Her voice was tight with tension. Silence. Click, the line went dead. She stayed planted, heart pounding. Picking up the cordless, she dialed her own number, then the landline. Still nothing. Her phone chimed and she flinched. An incoming text. Unknown caller, look outside. Cold air clung to her arms. She hadn't touched the window yet, but instinct pushed her forward. She pressed her palm to the glass. The sky was black.
No estretlicht.
No sign of movement. Her breath fogged a small circle on the pane. She twisted around and spotted it on the kitchen counter. A new message. Unknown caller, behind you. Her blood turned to ice. She darted back toward the hallway and stopped. The power was off in the house. Lights had gone out when the second message came. Again, it wasn't just the phone. It was intentional. Bella ran to the crawlspace stairs located behind the coat closet in the foyer. She threw open the small trapdoor. It creaked open, revealing concrete steps descending into darkness. Heat radiated upward like damp breath. The old basement lights flickered to life, bare bulb on a pull chain. She yanked it. Nothing. She flicked her phone's flashlight and crept down. The basement looked ordinary. Old metal shelves, boxes labeled Halloween 2018, and camping gear, a rusty water heater humming softly. She didn't call the cops. She didn't dial 911. Tonight she'd stay inside, locked down and alert. She passed by a cardboard box with her name scrawled on masking tape. It was filled with childhood keepsakes, old trophies, drawings, homemade birthday cards. A small movie ticket stub from a horror festival she'd attended here a few months ago, Crescent Festival of Frights. She twisted the rubber band holding it together. Inside was one ticket, still crisp. She checked the time. 2:50 a.m. Too late now. But her gut told her this night was connected to that festival entry. She retreated back upstairs and locked the basement door behind her. Bella tiptoed to her bedroom's mirrored closet door. She stared at the reflection. Her face looked paler, tired, frightened. She needed a distraction. She rummaged through her bedside drawer and found a small hand mirror she used to inspect of makeup nightmares. Holding it out before her, she stared into her eyes, then flicked off the light. Just the mirror and moonlight in the reflection. Three's the mirror call trick, she whispered. Something the internet horror Reddit taught. Ring bell 3 times, ask who's there, say your name 3 times, then stare and promise to open the mirror. She wasn't sure why she tested it, but in that moment it felt like doing something. Bell rang once, then twice, then 3 times, her heart racing so much she could barely hear the echo. Bella Harding, she said, voice shaking. Then all was still.
No whisper.
No dark figure. She exhaled, laughing at herself. Silly, she thought, resetting the mirror. But when she glanced up, her reflection was smiling. Slow, unnatural. Not a normal reflection. Her lips curled in a grin she had not made. She gasped. The reflection held the grin as her fingers twitching around the mirror's edge gave away how terrified she felt. Then the mirror's surface fogged, moist breath across glass, and tiny letters appeared, foggy and shaky. I was there. Bella dropped the mirror, clattered on the hardwood floor. The house lights flickered. She sat on the floor, heart pounding. Phone flashlight in one hand, mirror shards in the other, now broken in her grip. She texted police. 911. No signal. She texted friend Kara. No reply. Then, look outside again. Chills surged. From the corner of her eye, she saw something move beyond the blinds. Dark silhouette pacing. She backed up but slipped on the mirror shard, tearing her pajama pants slightly. She ignored the cut. She looked through the window. A person stood beneath the lamp in the driveway, still, head tilted, at the top of the concrete path, just like the figure in Festival Horror Yard Maze. He wore a plain white mask, expressionless. The festival mask. But no mouth holes. Just smooth, blank porcelain. Around it, dark eyes stared at her through the mask's eye slits. She backed away from the window. A flicker of movement under the blinds caught her eye. Another figure. Mask different. Some tribal swallow mask she recognized from the festival. Every mask same, as she'd seen at the maze finale months ago. Her mind flashed back. The maze ends with a hall of mirrors, and the masked person. A static motion, then she woke up screaming. That night she never slept. Bella lay curled on the couch, every shadow in the room seeming to press closer. The broken mirror shards glistened on the floor beside her like spilled secrets. Her phone screen was black, no signal, no service. Suddenly, the landline phone rang again. Her heart jumped into her throat. She didn't move. The ring echoed through the quiet house, sharp and urgent. Please don't pick it up, she whispered to herself. The ringing stopped abruptly. She exhaled in relief. But just as she relaxed, the phone rang again. Faster this time. She snatched the receiver off the cradle. Hello. Her voice shook. A low whisper came through the line. Bella. The sound was breathless, not quite human. A cold rush swept over her. Who is this? She demanded. More whispering. Then a voice she recognized. It was her own, but slower, deeper. I'm here. Who is I? Bella's voice cracked. A chilling laugh answered. Waiting. Stop calling me, she shouted and slammed the phone down. Suddenly, the front door handle rattled violently. Bella leapt up, eyes wide. She ran to the door and yanked it. It didn't budge. Then the windows all began to thud, like pounding fists. She ran from room to room, every door, window, even the cabinets, locked tight.
No escape.
Her cell lit up with a new text. Unknown caller, you're trapped. She dialed 911. The call dropped immediately. She screamed, slammed her fists on the table. The house groaned. The lights flickered. In desperation, Bella ran to her room and grabbed the old diary she'd found years ago in the attic during spring cleaning. Its cover was cracked leather, worn from decades of use. Inside were scrawled entries dated back to 1941. One passage stood out. The night caller never leaves. He waits in the phone lines, the shadows, the walls. Those who answer are lost. She flipped rapidly, scanning. The diary's owner, A girl named Margaret wrote of the house's dark past. Disappearances, strange phone calls, unexplained deaths. Her last entry was a warning. If the phone rings after midnight, do not answer. If you do, the night caller will come. Bella's blood ran cold. Suddenly, a shadow appeared at the window again. She crept over slowly, heart pounding. Outside stood the masked figure, motionless. Her breath caught. Then the figure raised a hand, slow, deliberate. A message scrawled on the glass. Come. Bella turned away, trembling. A sudden breeze blew through the room. The lights died completely. The house filled with whispers, low and growing louder. Bella? Come. Stay. Her phone rang again, vibrating on the floor. She picked it up. The screen showed no caller ID. The whisper returned. It's time. She dropped the phone. The walls seemed to close in. The masked figure's knocking grew frantic. Her vision blurred. And then blackness. Bella woke with a jolt. Her head throbbed. She was on the floor, wrapped in a thin blanket. The clock read 5:34 a.m. Sunlight filtered weakly through the blinds.
No ringing. No pounding. No shadow.
She tested the phone. It was dead silent. Her breath came fast and shallow. Had it all been a nightmare? She tried to piece together what happened. She remembered the diary, the calls, the mask. Her phone's gallery showed pictures she didn't take. A masked figure standing in the hallway. The basement door ajar. Her own terrified face illuminated by flashlight. She had no memory of taking any photos. 13. The investigation. She called the police, telling them about the strange events. Officers arrived, searched the house thoroughly. No signs of forced entry.
No masked intruders. No explanation.
The basement was locked from the inside. Later that day, Bella visited the local library. She researched the house's history, found old newspaper clippings about a string of disappearances linked to the house. The last resident, a man named Charles Thornton, vanished without a trace in 1942. That night, the phone rang again. Bella's hands trembled as she reached for it. Hello? She whispered. The voice on the other end was familiar, her own. I'm still here. She slammed the phone down and bolted out of the room. The following days were a blur of panic and exhaustion. Bella tried everything to escape the cycle of calls and shadows. She changed phone numbers, installed new locks. Yet the calls persisted. The voice always the same, her own distorted. You can't leave. One evening, Bella spotted a figure lurking outside her window. Masked, silent, unmoving. She tried to get a good look, but the figure vanished whenever she approached. Her phone began receiving cryptic texts filled with static and symbols. Some messages contained her deepest fears and secrets. One night, the phone rang continuously for hours. Bella's nerves frayed. She smashed the handset, yet the ringing echoed in her mind. Desperate, Bella returned to the diary. The last pages contained a ritual to sever ties with the night caller. She prepared to perform it, knowing it might come at a cost. Bella gathered the items listed in the diary. A black candle, salt, a silver mirror, and a silver knife. She lit the candle in the center of her living room and spread salt in a circle around it. With shaking hands, she held the mirror up and repeated the incantation written in the faded pages. Night caller, begone from this place. Return to the shadows. Leave no trace. The room grew cold. The candle flickered violently. A shadow materialized, tall, masked, silent. Bella stared into its empty eyes. The figure slowly reached out. Bella gripped the silver knife. She thrust it toward the shadow, but it passed through as if it was smoke. The shadow whispered, her own voice. You cannot kill me. You summoned me. She faltered. The shadow moved closer. In desperation, Bella smashed the mirror with the knife. The shadow screamed. A soundless, piercing shriek. The candle flame exploded. Salt scattered. The room went silent. The house felt lighter. The phone remained silent. The masked figure was gone. Bella breathed deeply, finally free. Months later, Bella moved to a new city. She never used a landline again. But sometimes, late at night, she still hears a faint ring and a whisper on the wind, "I'm still here."